These are the NAV batteries from Lumenier. They're premium lithium-ion batteries designed specifically for long range and long flight times. Now, when it comes to drone batteries, there's a huge difference in price. So why would you want to invest in some premium batteries like these if you've already got a bunch of lipos around like this one? What type of flight times can you expect from these batteries? And are they worth the money? Those are some of the questions that I'm going to answer in this video, so don't go anywhere. And please do subscribe, leave a comment with your feedback or any suggestions. I'm always trying to improve my channel, and I really appreciate hearing from you guys. All right? Thanks a lot. Now let's get into it. This is a 4S 3000 milliamp pack, and this is a 6S 3000 milliamp pack. Now there's a reason why I buy these packs in pairs. Lumenier does offer 6000 milliamp 6S packs. That 6000 milliamp pack is going to be perfect for your larger long range drones like the Moz 7 7.5 inch that I've got back here. I actually prefer to run pairs of 3000 milliamp packs on my Moz 7 rather than one single 6000 milliamp pack, and I really do that for two reasons. First of all, I can reuse these packs on a 5-inch drone like this GEP-RC Croc 5, and I don't have to buy a bunch of extra batteries. Second, if you ever want to travel with your drones, the rules for flying with lithium batteries say that you're allowed to carry on batteries up to 100 watt hours. Now, each of the cells inside these batteries is 11.1 watt hours. That means that this 4S 3000 milliamp pack is 44.4 watt hours. This one is 66.6 watt hours, and the 6000 milliamp pack is 133 watt hours, which means you can travel on an airplane with a whole pile of these, but you can't easily travel on an airplane with even a single 6000 milliamp pack. Now, technically, TSA rules say that you can request special permission from the airline to carry up to 2 batteries up to 160 watt hours. But for me, that sounds like a whole lot of hassle, and there's a risk of missing your flight because you know how those TSA agents are. A lot of them don't even know the rules, and it's pretty much guaranteed you'll get held up at security. I live in South America and I travel a lot with my drones. I've had no trouble taking these packs in my carry-on luggage, but I have had TSA in the US and security in other countries check those labels just to make sure they're under 100 watt hours. Now, for you, that may not be important. If you plan to fly long range and you never plan to travel with your drones by air, those 6000 milliamp packs are a super nice way to go, and it's a lot more convenient to use one single battery because you don't have to fool around with parallel cables. Now, what's the difference between lithium-ion and lipo batteries, and why would you want to fly lithium-ion batteries on your drone? Basically, lithium-ion batteries have a greater energy density, which means more milliamps per unit of weight or longer flights. To demonstrate this, let's get out the trusty scale. The 4S 3000 milliamp pack weighs in at about 200 grams. A lipo pack with half the capacity, this is a 4S 1500 milliamp pack, weighs in at 182 grams. So both of these are within 20 grams, but this pack has twice the stated capacity. The 3000 milliamp 6S pack weighs in at 312 grams. By comparison, a 6S lipo with half the capacity weighs in at 267 grams, or it weighs about the same as a 6S 1800 milliamp pack. In other words, for the same amount of weight, you're getting more milliamps, and that's why you get longer flight times with lithium-ion packs. So if lithium-ion packs give us more energy for the same amount of weight, why don't we fly them all the time? The answer to that is that lithium-ion packs have a slower discharge rate, which means they can't deliver the amps as fast as lipos can. For example, this lipo pack is rated at 100C, and most lithium-ion packs are rated at around 10C. What that means is the lipo is capable of discharging faster and delivering more amps to your motors. So when you want to race or bash or just fly your quad really fast, lipos are going to give you better performance, and you just accept that they're going to have shorter flight times. They're also cheaper, so you can probably buy more, but I find they don't last as long. Even with proper care, they will lose their punch over time, and when you crash, They tend to look like this. If you think this one looks a little bit deformed, you should see the ones I throw away. I usually throw away a lipo after I crash it and it gets all smashed up. This one I actually saved to use as a charging pack. But the point is, lipos are not as durable as lithium-ion packs. When you want to just cruise and your priority is range and flight times, for example, if you're interested in getting some cinematic scenery shots, lithium-ion batteries are going to give you longer flight times. They do tend to cost more, but they maintain their capacity better over time, and they actually tend to survive crashes better. The cells are more protected than lipo batteries, and the second reason is you'll probably crash less with the type of cruising or long-range flights that these packs are designed for. I pretty much never crash when I'm flying lithium-ion because I'm flying in a very conservative way to keep that amp draw low. But by far the biggest reason why I prefer to fly lithium-ion batteries for long range is that the discharge cycle is so much more predictable. To demonstrate the difference of how these batteries discharge in real general terms, a lipo battery discharges something like this. You charge up to 4.2 volts, you start flying, you're doing really well, you're getting all those amps, you're real happy, you're flying, you're cruising around. You better watch your voltage because once you hit 3.5 volts, it's going to fall off a cliff and look something like that. With that lithium-ion battery, you're going to charge it to 4.1, maybe 4.2 volts. You're going to start flying, it's going to drop a little bit more, you're getting less amps, but you're really happy, you're having a nice long flight. You go to 3.6, 3.5, 3.4, 3.3, 3.2 volts, and it discharges in a more reliable way, something like that. As you can see in my super accurate and super scientific diagram here, when you're flying around and hit this voltage drop-off point with lipo batteries, you better be home or close to home, and that's why we don't fly our lipos down past 3.5 volts, is because of this voltage cliff. Let's call this the oh shit moment. Now with lithium-ion packs, the discharge curve is much more reliable, and you can fly right past that 3.5 volts and keep going at 3.4, 3.3, all the way down to 3 volts safely. Some people even say you can discharge down to 2.8, but personally, I like to take good care of my batteries and I don't discharge much past 3 volts, and I usually land at about 3.2, but that's up to you. If you're laughing at my beautiful diagram right now, feel free to look up some actual battery discharge tables on the internet. This is just designed to demonstrate some general concepts. Here's a few tips for flying with lithium-ion batteries and trying to get the longest flight times possible. First of all, keep your rig as lightweight as possible. I'll demonstrate on this GEP-RC Croc 5. I'm not flying with a camera, so I removed the TPU GoPro mount. Also, you probably don't need TPU landing feet. This is a lightweight drone, and so it came with these foam landing feet, but you can also pick these up on Amazon. Look around for any place that you can get rid of weight, and unnecessary TPU accessories are usually a good point to start. Also, use efficient motors. Don't go for excessively powerful and heavy motors unless you really need to carry heavy batteries or large cameras. But most of all, exercise throttle discipline. What that means is from the moment you take off until the moment you land, maintain smooth throttle movements and use just enough throttle to get to where you're going and to maintain your altitude, and that will keep that amp draw low and you'll get better flight times. Now for these test flights, my intention is to demonstrate the type of flight time that you can expect with these batteries. I'm not trying to go for absolute maximum range or maximum flight time. I do fly pretty conservatively because I don't want to risk losing my equipment. I have lost long-range drones before and it sucks. And also I don't want to damage my batteries. These cost some money and I don't want to run them completely dry. I usually charge lithium-ion batteries to about 4.1 or 4.15 volts per cell. These Lumenier batteries are rated to 4.2 volts per cell, and that will give you some longer flight times, but remember that using your batteries gently, and what that means is not charging them too high and not discharging them too low, will give you longer battery life. Also, I am flying at high altitude. I live in the Andes Mountains and my flying locations are usually between about 8,000 to 12,000 feet, so I do tend to run higher pitch props. You can expect longer flight times if you fly at lower altitudes. I'll be running a 6,000 milliamp 6S pack on this GEP-RC Mose 7. I'll be running a 3,000 milliamp 6S pack on this GEP-RC Croc 5, and I'll be running a 3,000 milliamp 4S pack on this GEP-RC Croc 4. Now the Croc 4 is a similar weight with similar motors to the Flywoo Explorer 4 and the new GEP-RC Turn Long Range 40. So if you have one of those, you can expect similar results. All right, let's get out and fly. All right, you guys, my first test is with the GEP-RC Croc 5 running a 6S 3000 milliamp NAV battery. Don't worry, I will be fast forwarding through this footage so you guys can see the results you're here to see. I'm not gonna make you watch the whole thing. For some reason, my altitude did not make it into this recording, but my spotter and I were carefully monitoring the drone's altitude to make sure it didn't go over 400 feet. Any appearance of higher altitude is an illusion caused by the mountainous terrain. I can assure you that we were in full compliance with local regulations at all times. And I'm not in the US. I am using an older M8 GPS unit, so I did sit there for about 30 seconds waiting for satellites. I live in the Andes Mountains and I'm usually flying at around 10,000 feet in altitude, so keep that in mind because your quad is a little bit less efficient at altitude, but the flip side of that is I usually get sats with no problems at all. These older GPS units work just fine, but wow, after getting used to using an M10 GPS unit, this M8 does feel a little bit old. In just a minute, we'll be testing the Mose 7, and you'll see the difference in the GEP-RC M8 and M10 units. I am using my goggles Integra with a Caddx Vista, so that means I'm using linear antennas on my goggles and left-hand circular polarized antennas on my quad, and I'm not getting the absolute best video reception possible. Lumenier does have some great antenna upgrades available. I'll tell you guys about those when we're testing the Mose 7. My Croc 5 is a 4S quad, but I am running 6S batteries right now. I do that by running a motor output limit in beta flight. I have automatic profile switching set up, so when I plug in a 4S battery, that motor output limit is off or at 100%. And then when I plug in a 6S battery, it sets a motor output limit at 68%. Obviously, you can set that a bit higher or lower to your liking. Personally, I like a tiny bit more equivalent KV to handle the extra weight of that 6S battery, and when I land, my motors are warm but not hot. In beta flight, I named that profile 6S, and then I have my OSD set to display the PID profile name, and that's why you see a 6S up there under the craft name. I like to do that so I can use 4S and 6S batteries interchangeably, and I'm not wondering if beta flight is actually applying the correct motor output limit or not. It's right there in my OSD. The Croc 5 is actually one of my favorite drones, and I don't know why this category isn't more popular. 5-inch ultralights are basically silent, or as silent as an FPV drone can be, and they're just big enough to carry a GoPro Bones or a naked GoPro and still get some crazy long flight times. If you've ever taken a 7-inch or larger drone mountain surfing, you know how heavy all those batteries can be when you're hiking up a peak to get the best vantage point. An ultralight like this one is a fraction of the weight and it just sips the power, which means less batteries to hike up the mountain with. GEP-RC hasn't updated the Croc 5 with an O3. I hope they do, or they come out with a Turn LR50 or something like that. I will be all over that when and if it comes out. All right, you guys, now that we're getting towards the end of the flight, you can see that on this 6S 3000 milliamp lithium ion battery, I easily got 17 minutes for my Croc 5, and I flew for about 12 kilometers. Remember, I did wait for about 30 seconds for my GPS to warm up, and I landed when my flight controller was reporting 3 volts. As soon as I landed, I popped that battery into a battery checker, and it showed an average of 3.28 volts, or just under 3.3 volts, so I'm easily within safe and normal usage limits of this battery. My next test was with the Mose 7. This time I'm running a 6,000 milliamp 6S pack, which is actually 2 3,000 milliamp 6S packs connected in parallel. Like I mentioned before, I like to do this on my 7-inch quads because the same batteries can also be used for 5-inch quads, and it allows me to travel with my batteries since they're under 100 watt hours. It's a ton of fun flying a 7-inch, and after flying that Croc 5, the Moz 7 feels like an absolute beast. This is a way heavier quad, so it does make much more noise, and of course it's not going to be as efficient as the Croc 5, but the cruising speed is so much faster and it handles the wind so much better. I am running the GetRC M10 GPS on this quad, and wow, it's nice. It gets sats right away, and you guys can see that during this flight, I'm locked on to like 30 satellites, no problem. To be honest with you guys, I'm not completely happy with the range and video reception I'm getting out of the O3 and the Integra goggles on my Moz 7. The Integras do have linear antennas, and my Moz 7 is using left-hand polarized antennas. This is really common with DJI O3 bind and flies. A lot of manufacturers are shipping their DJI O3 quads with left-hand polarized antennas, and that's not really ideal. Fortunately, Lumenier just released some upgraded linear antennas designed specifically for the DJI O3 called the AX2 Dualities. Since these are designed and tuned specifically for the DJI O3, I would expect much better range than what I'm getting with the left-hand circular polarized antennas I'm running on my Moz 7. I do have a pair of these AX2 Dualities, but I literally just got them in, and I haven't installed them on my Moz 7 yet because I couldn't find a 3D print or a mounting solution in time for this battery endurance test. If you have a bind and fly with a DJI O3 and you want maximum range, you should definitely check out these duality antennas. I'll put a link to these antennas below. I will be testing out these antennas soon, and if you guys want to see a range test video with them, let me know in a comment. You know how it is, these videos do take some work, but I love making them, and if at least 3 people mention it in the comments below, I'll definitely do a range test with the duality antennas. All right, you guys, as you're about to see, I got just over 16.5 minutes and flew just over 12.5 kilometers on this 6,000 milliamp 6S pack. To be honest, I was hoping for closer to 20 minutes, but I think that has more to do with my setup than it does these lithium-ion packs, since we did just top 17 minutes on a single 3,000 milliamp 6S pack with the Croc 5. The Moz 7 is heavy, and it can definitely take an even larger, heavier battery. I'm running Emax Eco 2 1300 kV motors, which are not the most efficient motors available, and I did forget to take off the GoPro mount and the TPU landing feet like I recommended that you do earlier in the video, and so I could have removed a good 60 grams or so of dead weight. Also, I landed at 3 volts, and these cells can actually be run down a little bit further than that. I am flying at altitude. This spot is about 10,000 feet. If you're at a lower altitude with a lighter, more efficient rig, and especially if you're willing to run your batteries down a little bit further, you should easily be able to hit that 20-minute mark, no problem. My next test was with the 4S 3000 milliamp pack on the Croc 4. Unfortunately, you guys, I had an in-flight incident and I lost my video in OSD during my endurance test. The good news is that I had GPS rescue set up, and even running Betaflight 4.2, GPS rescue totally saved my bacon. Even though I had no usable FPV feed, GPS rescue brought my quad back close enough to me to where I was able to put it into angle mode and land at line of sight. That means I don't have a successful test to show you with the Croc 4, but hey, any day I come back from the mountain with all my drones is a good day. For reference, GetRC says you can get 28 minutes on the Croc 4 with a 3000 milliamp lithium-ion battery, and I have definitely gotten well over 20 minutes without even pushing it. To make up for that aborted test with the Croc 4, here's another quick flight using that 4S 3000 milliamp NAV battery on the Croc 5. As you can see, my flying location is at over 3,200 meters in altitude, which works out to be about 10,700 feet, so I am flying pretty high altitude. This is just a random casual flight. I was not doing any sort of endurance test, and I was not planning on using this DVR. I did have some issues with my OSD flashing on and off. I thought my flight controller might be bad, or I might have a bad BEC or something, but when I updated to Betaflight 4.5, problem went away. Also, I did forget to change the default battery settings in Betaflight, which is why you're gonna see that annoying low battery warning. In this flight, I did fly over 10 kilometers and over 12 minutes and landed with my battery at 3.2 volts, which came up to over 3.4 volts at rest. Again, this is a normal casual flight. This is not an endurance test, and I wasn't planning on sharing this DVR. During my normal flights, I land at more like 3.2 volts, not 3 volts, because I think you get longer battery life when you're using your batteries gently. But even under completely normal circumstances and taking really good care of this battery, not pushing it at all, you can count on flights well over 12 minutes on a similar 5-inch quad. All right, you guys, I told you at the beginning that I was gonna answer the question, are these batteries worth the money? I'm gonna say that they are. And the reason I say that is if you're flying long range, an unreliable battery can force you to land somewhere inconvenient or could even cause you to lose your quad. Now, how much did you pay for that long range drone? Especially if you're running a DJI O3 and maybe even a GoPro, you can see how lithium ion batteries have a much more reliable discharge curve, and you can fly right past that 3.5 volt voltage cliff that you have with lipos. So yeah, for me, it's totally worth the money to invest in longer and safer flights. All right, you guys, thanks a lot for watching until the end. I really appreciate having you here, and I'll see you in the next one.